So we're going to move forward into more information about the 1910s, 1920s, and it moves into Prohibition. Prohibition occurred in the 1920s and all the way to 1933, and it made alcohol legal through a constitutional amendment. This was a chance for those who were trying to maintain America's cultural values the same. And they saw alcohol as an enemy that many people could get behind, and so they thought, let's go ahead and just ban it, because that always works well. Well, people didn't really know that yet, but they're about to find out, because bootleggers were able to make alcohol and sell alcohol, and they were able to do it through speakeasies, where alcohol was served despite prohibition. There were laws in place. People would be fined. They would go to jail. There are lots of images of people like breaking over barrels to pour the alcohol down the drains. But it went to show that when the government in this day decided to tell you something, people were willing to say no. They were willing to act against what the government told them to do, which is, again, a huge shift in the way of thinking, because people wanted to live in the moment. They did not want to live under someone else telling them how to live their life. It was also a new era for women with the 19th Amendment and the right to vote. In the prior video, I talked about how women changed even their appearance and how they changed their dress. For instance, you had a flapper, which was an emancipated young woman who embraced new fashions and urban attitudes of the day. And more women were working as well and making money to support themselves versus having to be dependent upon a male figure. Here are two contrasting images for you. On the left-hand side, you have some advertising against alcohol. But on the right-hand side, you have people who are just walking the streets with big old picket signs saying, "We want beer." This right here on the right-hand side is just kind of showcasing the divide that existed in the nation, how people were not working for a better country in their mind. They were working for what they want, because they want to experience what life they wanted to live. There were many major influences in the 1920s as well. You had the Great Depression of the stock market caused by the stock market crash in 1929, where banks failed, businesses kind of floundered, had a difficult time surviving, workers lost their job, and there was a 25% unemployment rate. That is huge. Normally, America today experiences anywhere between a 3 to 5. 25% of the country being unemployed is just monumental. Farmers were ruined. They didn't have any money to support their fields. They had to move west to find areas to work, which led to migration westward. And not many jobs were available, and there were too many people for these jobs. And of Mice and Men, we're going to kind of work with the migration west, finding jobs and how they live their life. There's also what's called the New Deal, which was created by FDR. It was a program for hungry and homeless, but just anyone in America, as a way to kind of bring everyone back from the brink of destruction. Like one of the FDR New Deals would be, for instance, dam building. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Here's more images of the concern that was caused as a result of the Great Depression. You have a woman and her family concerned about tomorrow. You have a child protesting because his dad doesn't have a job. And then you see a small family who lives in shacks, hand-me-down clothes. This was American life for many who experienced it in the 1930s. So with some themes in modern literature that kind of go with this, you have collectivism versus individualism, you have disillusionment, violence and alienation, you have decadence and decay, loss and despair, a breakdown of social norms and cultural sureties, race and gender relations, and the American dream, and the loss of the American dream. All of these are a complete shift from what transcendentalism, romantics, Enlightenment era of the earlier days, because the dream has fractured. The minds of people who lived in the world fractured after World War I. We have a theme of alienation, which is kind of expressed as what's called the lost generation, coined by Gertrude Stein. The character suffers a dissociation of sensibility, a separation of thought from feeling. So you think one thing, but you feel something else. The person's not driven as one individual, but they're a fracture. And it's also called a dream deferred from Langston Hughes. We have valorization of the individual as well, where characters are heroic in the face of a future they can't control. You would normally have a character like, let's think, Odysseus, controlling his life, beating the villains, winning the day. Everything works out in the end. that's not the case. In many cases of literature, you have a hero who is often battling and sometimes even losing in the face of what they're trying, but at least they're trying. Gatsby's going to be one of these examples. You also have urbanscapes. Life in the city differs from life on the farm. Writers explore the city life. The conflicts begin to center on society versus just farm attitudes. Another idea you have is a stream of consciousness narration. So it's a narrative mode which seeks to portray an individual's point of view by giving the written equivalent of the character's thoughts processes, either through loose internal monologue or connection to the action. So as the person experiences what it is to experience the plot, you experience it too. It walks you through as it's happening. Another idea, and one final one, is juxtaposition, where it's two images that are otherwise not commonly brought together, appear side by side or structurally close together. An example of this is he was slouched alertly. Well, if you slouch, you're not alert, but you are alert in this case. A striking example of a juxtaposed image is, imagine a beggar on the street holding out their hands, dirty, hungry, just all kinds of in despair. But then you have two people, a couple, walking down the street, happily, lovingly looking at each other, clean, fresh, just on the same street, ignoring the person that is down there holding out their hand. It's a juxtaposed image. And that kind of fracturing occurs in many pieces of literature, such as The Great Gatsby. So in the next video, we'll kind of wrap things up for you for American modernism. Thank you.